Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art and culture, and as you can probably tell from me taking this to a more handheld position, I'm going on vacation soon for 2 weeks, actually just over 2 weeks. I'm going to the UK and Scotland. First time I've ever been out there. You might see some sights while I'm on the road, but that also means my vacation review policy is in effect. It's going to be a little bit more abrupt, potentially not going to be covering things in as much depth, but that also means I'm going to be covering a lot more albums on the docket. And you know what? Let's start off by blowing through some hip-hop records that have piled up on my schedule for the past couple of, let's call it months, and let's get started.
They be hating on this. Fredo be buying big bits of the dust, he's a shot top her lid. Yeah, my boo rocking on this, and I'm the only one she wanting. Keep my chick in designer shoes, cause she's a shopaholic.
So, as you can see behind me, I'm currently filming in Manchester. Pretty sweet, I'm not gonna lie. But since I'm in the UK, I might as well talk about some UK hip-hop, more in the grime spectrum. And this is something that's been on my schedule for a long time, so let's talk about Fredo. Back in 2017, he put out a really well-received mixtape, and I went back to it, and it's some solid UK grime. Yeah, the subject matter is pretty conventional, for lack of better words. And he's got this weird thing with his flow where his rhymes connect, but he keeps going a little bit too far off the edge of the beat. He keeps slipping off it. It's a little weird. And yeah, his content didn't really go above and beyond, but I liked a lot of his production. It was pretty aggressive, pretty melodic. It really came through. There was some okay storytelling, and while the guest stars did not impress me, I thought there was some hope for this guy. Sadly, Tables Turn didn't really get there for me. It reminds me a lot of the comparison between Wiley's Godfather 1 and Godfather 2, in that it's softer, it's more focused on celebrating the success rather than the come up, and it's just not really as interesting. Melodically, it's still there, but it's a lot softer. In terms of his flows, they mostly get there, but he still has this odd habit of slipping off the beat in weird places, even if his technical rhyme construction is good. And sadly, his content has actually lost some of the storytelling elements that I actually thought were so damn compelling. Now, granted, he integrates some of the guest performance a little bit better. There's a Not 35 presence there that I actually kind of liked, and he actually brings in some guitars on spot, which I think is promising. And I don't know, it's showing some development, it's showing a more progressive and interesting MC, which I appreciate, but beyond that, I feel like I've heard a lot of this before. It's not top tier hip hop or grime, so I don't know, 6 out of 10. Check it out if you're curious. You know what, when I first saw the album cover and I started seeing that album trailer teaser thing he did, I actually started hoping that Freddie Gibbs would make something in that Teddy Pendergrass sort of way, almost like a bit of a spoof or a parody, because he did it with so much panache and he's got so much natural charisma that I honestly hoped he would go off and do something in that lane. Sadly, he didn't. This is an album full of trap bangers. Not bad trap bangers by any means. I will say that overall, in terms of flow and natural charisma, even if the content's nothing to write home about, it's still an enjoyable listen. Like, if you want to just turn up to some decent, hard-hitting hip-hop, this is great stuff to do it with. I'd listen to him over listening to Migos any day of the week. But I don't know, in terms of melody, it's not quite as powerful as some of the stuff he's done in the past, and again, the content's not really going anywhere that's all that special or interesting. I think I've got less expectations than You Only Live Twice, so I'm going to be more forgiving of it, even if the fact that it is going in a more minimalist lane, I'm not sure is the best lane for Freddie Gibbs, but for me, especially given some of the more abbreviated cuts, this feels like a stopgap release, something to hold up in between before Bandana with Madlib finally comes out. But still, I enjoyed it. I'm thinking very light 7 out of 10. If you're a Freddie Gibbs fan, check it out, but even if you're not, you want some good gangster rap, you can't go wrong with this. Unlike the next album.
Two young niggas going too crazy. Two bad bitches, I be double dating. Two mad niggas saying fuck you, pay me. Too high
houses, I be going too crazy. 2 young niggas in the coupe racing. 2 young niggas on the block pacing. 2 young niggas po-po chasing. 2 young niggas beefing, Freddy vs. Jason.
I'm not gonna lie, this record kind of breaks my heart a little bit. And I wasn't even a YG fan to begin with. I mean, I reviewed My Crazy Life and I got a lot of backlash to not really liking it all that much either. I'm sorry, if all you really have are the bare basics and telling that hood story, well, you don't have a lot of detail and you're not especially great rapper, I'm not gonna be all that impressed by it. But then 2 years later, he brought in Still Brazy. And honestly, I like that a lot more. He got a little bit more political. He brought in some of those G-Funk vibes that really fit with his more charismatic flow. And he's got an underrated sense of wry humor that I think is really underappreciated. I like that album to this day, and it's got its fair share of bangers. And it did nothing. It did not have sales, it did not have huge, big blowout singles. It should have, but I don't know what to tell you. The mainstream does not have a lot of taste in that regard. So 2 years later, we got the natural after effect of that. We got Stay Dangerous, which really goes back to the DJ Mustard formula, but the problem is we're dealing with post-2014 DJ Mustard, and he's relying upon a lot of these runny synths that have way too much reverb, feel way too murky, and have nowhere near that same level of catchy appeal. Then you have YG himself, and honestly, look, I like this guy's charisma. He's a natural force of personality, but he's not a great rapper. He really does not sound good hopping in a lot of these triplet flows or trying to imitate other styles of hip-hop. He's calling out Ludacris, he's calling out Right Said Fred, of all people, in some of these bars. And really, when you take a look at his content, I'll put aside some of the stuff about women, which just gets a little questionable, but honestly, he's not saying anything that's all that innovative or special. And when you factor in with a lot of guest stars who are not pulling their weight, and they really should, considering how much he probably had to pay them to get them on board, it's just depressing. This is YG forcing to default to a mainstream when he actually went more experimental, got the acclaim for it, but nobody got on board because radio didn't know how to handle a decent G-Funk project. So it's not all bad. There's a couple decent bangers in that mold if you get on board with the DJ Mustard sound, and honestly, I'm not the biggest fan, but I can kind of get behind it. And he's got a closing track that actually brings in a lot of guitars, and honestly, maybe a little bit more of that organic vibe could have worked, especially when you do have some of the G-Funk synths he tries to integrate near the final third of the album, and they really sound blaring and badly mixed. But this should be better than it is. I know YG can do better than this. I know YG can have a better sound than this, but he's chasing what will actually put food on the table for him and his daughter, and I can't fault him for that, but this was a disappointment. Light 5 out of 10. And for my next stop, I'm not sure where I'm going to be going yet. I'm thinking probably it's going to be a couple other stops down the way. I'm not sure how many reviews I'm going to be able to crunch out in the meantime. The tour group I'm traveling with is pretty rowdy, so you never know. You might actually see some of them show up in these videos. Who knows? We'll see. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Spectrum Pulse while he's on vacation, and I'll see you next time.